Have you ever left work feeling drained, like you've carried the weight of a fight without having discussed it with anyone? Maybe you're living it every day and you didn't even realize it. Maybe what's destroying you isn't the excess of tasks, nor the demanding boss, nor the pressure for results. Maybe what's consuming you inside is something invisible, intentional, and strategically silent. I'm talking about emotional manipulation in the workplace. It's subtle. It is disguised as concern, friendship, constructive feedback. But behind the calm tone, the rehearsed smile and the sweet words, there is a cruel psychological game being played, and you are the target. Have you ever found yourself doubting yourself after a conversation with a colleague? Have you ever felt like you were always wrong, even when you were sure of what you were doing? Have you ever noticed that your achievements are ignored, but your mistakes become the subject of suggestions for improvement? That's not bad luck. It's not your sensitivity. This has a name, emotional manipulation, and it destroys your self-confidence, erodes your energy, and sabotages your reputation. The most dangerous, it's just that whoever does this is usually right next to you and acts as if they were your friend, someone who invites you to coffee, who praises your deliveries in front of the boss, but who plants doubts and criticism when you're not around. And do you know why this works? Because this type of person does not scream, she whispers. It doesn't attack you, it exhausts you. Emotional manipulators at work don't want you to fall all at once. They want you to self-destruct, little by little, doubting yourself more and more until you hand over your own strength on a platter. And all of this happens while you smile, pretend everything is fine, and swallow hard. Afraid of looking dramatic, afraid of looking weak. But let me tell you something, the modern professional environment is full of saboteurs camouflaged as worried colleagues. They tell you that they are trying to help you, but in fact, they are pulling the strands down your back. And you know the worst. You don't have to be the most inexperienced employee to fall for this. Smart, experienced people, leaders, we can all be manipulated when the attack is not direct, but emotional. This type of manipulation does not leave evidence, but it does leave marks. Brands such as constant emotional exhaustion, fear of taking a stand, guilt for things that weren't even your responsibility, loss of confidence even in one's own decisions. And then you start to wonder, am I the problem? Am I exaggerating? Is it just something in my head? That's exactly what they want. Make you question yourself before you question your surroundings. Meanwhile, those who manipulate are rising. He conquers space, influences people, shapes the narrative around his image, all without arousing suspicion. And the scariest thing, it's just that maybe you're living it right now, and you haven't realized it yet. Maybe you're in this video because something inside you screamed silently, "There's something wrong, but I don't know how to explain it." If that's the case for you, then you need to stick around until the end, because I'm going to show you how to identify this type of manipulation, how to protect yourself emotionally, and most importantly, how to turn the tables before it destroys your confidence completely. This video isn't just about toxic colleagues, it's about emotional survival in the modern workplace. And if you don't learn to play that game, you're going to be played by it. Now take a deep breath, look around, and get ready to see what you couldn't see until now. And now that you've started to see that something is wrong, that this emotional fatigue doesn't come only from the volume of work or the exhausting routine, the question that echoes the most is, who is behind it? Who comes day after day, consuming their energy without raising their voice, without signing the crime? The truth is brutal, but it needs to be told. Emotional manipulators are everywhere. And the scariest thing? They don't have the face of a villain. They are not the ones who shout. They are not the ones who fight in meetings. They are not the ones who throw the paperwork on the table or make jokes openly. Most of the time, they're the exact opposite of what you might think. They are the nice ones, the polite ones, the good people, the ones that everyone loves, except for you who feel in your skin what they do when no one is looking. They are not confrontational, at least not directly. They will never expose you clearly. Their game is silent, strategic, cruel. They don't yell at you, they plant doubts. They put you as the exaggerated one in the story. They are masters at making you look like the problem. And the worst part, they do it with a smile on their face. Fake kindness, calculated compliments, passive-aggressive feedback. They are people who master the art of emotional manipulation as if it were a natural talent. It's that colleague who praises you in front of everyone. You're great with deadlines, you always deliver everything right. And minutes later, in the boss's office, he lets out an innocent man. He's good, but sometimes he needs a little push to think outside the box, you know? Or the one who says he cares about you. You're so tired. Is it really up to it? As if it were empathy, when in fact it is infiltrating doubt about its capacity. These people know how to control the narrative. They use the discourse of concern to shield themselves from any accusation, while slowly imploding their credibility within the team. And they do it with mastery, because in the eyes of others, they are cooperative, loyal, just. But with you, they are calculating, cold, predatory, and the worst, they make you believe that you are the one getting paranoid. They are colleagues who know how to victimize themselves like no one else. When confronted, they are hurt, wronged, misunderstood. Wow, I was just trying to help. You got it wrong. Does this phrase sound familiar to you? Well, it should, because it is a classic of emotional manipulation in the workplace. They reverse the blame. They make it seem that the mistake is yours, that your reaction is disproportionate, that you are the problem in the equation. They take advantage of any fragility you have, especially if you're the type who values justice, who cares about not being unfair to others, who tries to maintain harmony even when something bothers you deeply, because they know that their care will be their greatest weakness. And look, this is not theory. This happens every day in offices, companies, public offices, startups, and even in remote environments. These manipulators exist in all hierarchies, from peers at the same level to leaders, masquerading as mentors to assistants who are just following orders, but are there planting seeds of distrust all the time. They know how to build a solid reputation on the basis of deception. It's as if they wore masks perfectly shaped for each situation. With you, the mask is one of concern and veiled demand. With the boss, it's efficiency and loyalty. With colleagues, it's partnership and empathy. And in the end, those who start to seem unstable, irritable, too emotional, it's you, who are trying to survive emotionally in an environment where someone has chosen to undermine you, not by chance, but by strategy. And why do they do this? Often out of envy disguised as collegiality, other times by veiled competition. But in most cases, they do it because they realize that you have something they don't. Light of their own, competence, potential, truth. And for them, this is dangerous, because the presence of someone of integrity, talent, and emotionally connected to what they do exposes their mediocrity without you saying a word. Just the fact that you exist and do what you do well threatens their power game. So what do? They try to deconstruct you from the inside, slowly, constantly, as if they were molding you into someone smaller than you are, until you yourself start to believe it, and then you start to shut up. He begins to doubt. It begins to reduce its presence. You start apologizing for things that are not even your fault. He begins to live on the defensive, always walking on eggshells, trying to please so as not to be misunderstood. And all this only feeds the cycle of manipulation. Do you know why? Because the more you try to prove that you are good, the more vulnerable you become to those who use the emotional as a tool of domination. They don't want to argue with you. They want to control you. They don't want to compete with you. They want to weaken you before the competition starts. And they do it in such a sophisticated way that By the time you finally realize it, it's been months, maybe years. You've already lost opportunities, space, mental health. You've seen colleagues grow at your expense, while you carried the emotional weight of an environment that never recognized you. All this because someone back then decided that it was easier to sabotage you by smiling than to face you with courage. And that's why so many people can't even name this pain. Because it doesn't feel like harassment. It doesn't feel like open persecution. It just seems like things from the corporate environment. But it is not. It is a type of emotional abuse masked as good coexistence. A slow poison which gradually erases you while the world around you pretends that nothing is happening. But now that you've seen this hidden face of conflicts at work, you will no longer be able to unsee. And that's exactly why, in the next moment of this video, you'll understand the weapons these people use to dominate you without arousing. Suspicion, powerful but disguised emotional techniques that turn work environments into arenas of silent manipulation. And I'll show you, one by one, so you can finally see the game and stop being played. Now that you understand who these people are, you may be starting to realize that you've been surrounded by them more times than you'd like to admit. Maybe you're even remembering specific situations, conversations that made you uncomfortable, compliments that seemed to have a hidden poison, or that feeling of being excluded without ever understanding exactly why. This is how it starts. Everything seems too subtle to be real, and precisely for this reason, it is so effective. The most dangerous thing about emotional manipulators in the workplace is that they don't attack hard. They eat away often. They use techniques that are almost invisible to outsiders, but that accumulate inside you until your self-confidence becomes a minefield. And to understand how this happens, you need to know the most used weapons in this type of psychological sabotage. Because yes, they are weapons, silent, elegant, social, but still weapons designed to weaken you. The first of these is guilt, and this, perhaps, is the most common. Manipulators love to make you feel like you're always in debt. They'll never tell you you failed, at least not directly. They will prefer phrases like, "Wow, I thought you were more committed," or "Are you really going to leave now? We still have so much." To solve, phrases that seem harmless but that carry a devastating weight, because they make you doubt your right to rest, to say no, to impose limits. They don't accuse you, they embarrass you. They throw the expectation on your back and expect you to bend over on your own. And the worst, when you try to justify yourself, you feel weak, and that's exactly what they want, for you to start trading with your own conscience. That you question whether you are being selfish, disloyal, lazy. They don't need to convince you of anything. They just need to make you doubt yourself. The second tactic is even more subtle, but much more destructive. We're talking about gaslighting, a classic technique of emotional manipulation where reality is distorted to confuse you. And do you know how this appears at work? With phrases like, "You're exaggerating," or "That's not what I meant, you got it wrong," or even worse, "Wow, I didn't even know you were so sensitive." The goal here is simple, to make you doubt your own perception. And this is dangerous, because when you start to believe that you're always interpreting things the wrong way, you stop trusting yourself, stop complaining, stop taking a stand. You withdraw, you shut up, and you begin to live in fear that you are always misinterpreting. And at that point, you're already exactly where the handler wanted you to be, vulnerable and unresponsive. If you've been through this, comment below with the phrase, "Now it makes sense." Is that it? Let's see how many people were also being manipulated and didn't know it. Now comes one of the most treacherous, punitive silence. And maybe you don't even know that it has a name, but you certainly have. This is when a colleague stops talking to you out of nowhere. It excludes you from meetings, ignores your messages. He leaves you out of important conversations and then says he forgot to warn you. This type of behavior is a clear form of emotional punishment, but without saying a word. And that's what makes it so cruel. Because when someone yells at you, you know you're being attacked. But when someone silences you, erases you socially, you don't know how to react. It is a punishment without a sentence. It is a trial without defense. And since no one sees it as aggressive, you seem paranoid if you complain. But the effect of this, it's devastating. You feel invisible. He begins to wonder what he did wrong. He starts trying to please. You start doing everything to get accepted again. And that's when the manipulator overwhelms you. It makes you run after something that you never lost, but that he decided to deny you. And lastly, perhaps the most insidious of all, praise, followed by attack. The technique of the hand that strokes and then stabs. This is the kind of colleague who praises you publicly. You did a great job on this report, it was very good. And then he says something like, you just need to pay more attention to the deliveries because you were almost late again, right? Do you see the pattern? First it lifts you up and then knocks you down, but in a disguised way. Thus, if you react, it will seem that you are being ungrateful or overly sensitive. And if you keep quiet, you'll absorb the blow thinking it's part of the package. This type of emotional manipulation is common in competitive environments, especially where positions are contested with invisible smiles and punches. And often, the one who uses this tactic is someone who wants to seem like your ally, but who takes pleasure in destabilizing you emotionally. These four tactics, guilt, gaslighting, punitive silence, and praising with venom, are used every day in most modern workplaces. And the scariest thing? It's just that most people don't even realize that they are being manipulated. They think they are just being too sensitive. They think they have low self-esteem. They feel that they need to improve emotionally. But the truth is that they are surrounded by people who have learned to master the emotions of others in order to stay in power. It's as if there's a secret script that these handlers follow. A script that says, be nice but controlling, be friendly yet strategic, never confront, always distort. And the worst thing is that it works. Because while you struggle internally with your doubts, they are out there, moving forward, gaining space, building alliances at your expense. Now tell me, have you ever felt that you were praised only to be diminished later? Have you ever noticed that you have been excluded from something important without explanation? Have you ever felt guilty about things that weren't your responsibility? If so, comment here with, "It has happened to me." This is the phrase that many people here will write, because what you are experiencing, unfortunately, is much more common than it seems. But now that you recognize guns, the next question is how to protect yourself. How do you keep your sanity in an environment where every smile can hide an intention? How to neutralize this type of sabotage without becoming the complainer, without losing respect, and without getting your hands dirty? Stay with me, because that's exactly what you'll understand below. You will learn the strategies that protect your mind, your image, and your emotional strength in the face of the greatest manipulators the workplace has ever produced. And believe me, this can completely change the way you position yourself and how people treat you from now on. Now that you recognize the weapons, you can no longer ignore them. There is no longer any way to pretend that all this is normal, because it's not. And if you've made it this far, you've probably understood that you're not just dealing with difficult colleagues, you're dealing with people who know exactly where, when, and how to hit you without seeming aggressive. And what comes next is perhaps the most important point of this video, because knowing how to identify the problem is only half the battle. The other half is to shield yourself, and to do this without becoming the official target of the environment, without becoming the difficult person, the person who is too sensitive, the one who complains about everything. You need to protect yourself with intelligence, with strategy, and above all, with emotional self-awareness and firm positioning. And the first thing you need to understand is that yes, there is a way to set limits without having to raise a flag, bang on the table, or make a scandal. This form is called the silent limit, and it starts with small adjustments in behavior. Talk less, reveal less, stop justifying yourself so much. Manipulators feed on information. The more you explain, the more they know how to twist your lines, use your emotions against you, and put together a version of the story where you seem weak, unstable, or out of control. Keep the mystery. Say less than they think you're going to say. Control the narrative through silence. And here comes one of the most underestimated habits in professional conflict environments: recording everything. This is not paranoia, it's strategy. Everything that can be put in writing must be put in writing. Email, message, formal notes. Avoid important verbal conversations, because one of the favorite tactics of emotional manipulators is to deny, distort, or forget what has been verbally agreed. With registration, you not only protect your word, but also leave traces, and traces are power. They are your version of history, protected from any selective memory game. Another crucial point: don't react with emotion. I know it's hard. When someone teases you, insinuates you, subtly exposes you, all you want is to explode or defend yourself. But if you fall into the trap of reacting impulsively, the image that remains is one of lack of control. And that's exactly the terrain where manipulators win. They make it seem like you're the problem, while they keep looking stable. So instead of reacting, respond. Take it easy, with data, with posture. Respond as someone who is above the game. And there's more. Learn to use silence as a strategic tool. Silence bothers those who want emotional control. He is the absence of fuel for the manipulator's fire. When you don't give the expected reaction, the game loses its fun. When you don't enter the theater, the script collapses. Learn to emotionally remove yourself from the scene without physically leaving the room. This takes practice, but it is one of the most powerful psychological shielding tools out there. Because silence, in this context, is resistance. It is a firm presence without having to explain itself. You may be wondering, but won't that keep me away from people? Won't it seem like I'm cold, closed, arrogant? And the answer is no, if you know how to balance firmness with respect. You don't have to be rude to be respected. You just need to show that you are clear about your worth and that you will not be emotionally manipulated as before. People realize that. They sense when someone is no longer available to be controlled, and that's where the dynamic changes. Often, the handler backs off when he realizes that you are no longer reacting within the script he created for you. When you realize that your words don't affect you anymore, that their blame strategies no longer work, that your silence does not destabilize you, but strengthens you. And that's when you start to turn the tables, not because he confronted him, but because he understood the game. And as I said, they can only control who reacts. Whoever understands the game changes the game. Now, if you want to take an even stronger step, start building what I call reputation armor. This is when you become so consistent in what you deliver, so clear in your communication, and so impeccable in your records, that it becomes difficult even for a manipulator to question your conduct, because everything is documented, because everything you do is solid, because you pass security, and security is one of the greatest shields against emotional manipulation. But beware, being respected is not the same as being feared. The goal here is not to become an unattainable emotional wall, but to take control of your psychological space in the workplace. You're not here to be emotionally dominated. You are here to grow, to contribute, to stand out. And this will not happen if you continue to be the easy target of those who feed on your effort and hide behind social masks. You need to start seeing yourself as an active agent in your emotional protection. Don't wait for the environment to change for you. Don't wait for the boss to notice, for colleagues to defend, or for the system to be fair. Because in toxic environments, silence often protects those who attack and penalizes those who feel. So, be your own defense. Create your own emotional safety framework. And if you've made it this far in the video, it's because you have something inside you that refuses to continue being targeted. Something inside you that is tired of being silent, of blaming yourself, of adapting to standards that diminish you. Something that wants and deserves respect. He comments below, "I will not react anymore. I'll understand the game." This simple phrase can be your first act of change. It is a public commitment that you will no longer accept being emotionally manipulated by those who hide behind false kindness. And now that you're starting to really protect yourself, you may be wondering, but what do I do when they try to turn the tide? When they provoke me just to destabilize me even more? How do I respond without falling into the same level? That's what we're going to talk about now. Because the next step is to understand how to turn this emotional shield into a strategic advantage and use it to grow, stand out, and earn respect, even in the most toxic environments. And that's where a lot changes. Now that you understand the game, now that you recognize the tactics, now that you've learned how to emotionally shield yourself without looking like the company's rebel, it's time to really turn the tables. Yes, because protecting yourself is essential, but standing out with strategic intelligence is what really changes everything. You no longer have to walk through the halls of your company wondering if you're overreacting, if you're being boring, if you're getting paranoid. No, you are lucid. He is conscious. He is awake inside an environment where many are still sleeping, or pretend they are. What to do now? The answer is simple but powerful. Act differently. Start observing everything with a new lens. Look at the conversations, the messages, the meetings, the compliments and the silences for what they really are. Movements within an invisible board. And like every game, what matters most is not the number of pieces. He is the one who knows how to move each one. Of them, you'll start to notice how your simple silence changes the behavior of others. You will realize how the fact of not reacting, of registering, of taking a firm position bothers more than 1,000 words. And more than that, you will feel your energy coming back. That feeling that you need to protect yourself all the time starts to dissolve, because now you're in control. And then, naturally, you start to grow. Not because you are forcing it, but because you have now become emotionally unreachable. You stop wasting energy on small teases, on mind games, on microaggressions disguised as feedback. You start playing on another level, the level of emotional maturity. And at this level, the one who stands out is not the one who shouts the loudest. He is the one who remains more centered. Of course, not every environment will accept this with open arms. In highly toxic places, where emotional chaos fuels culture, its stability can be perceived as a threat. But in this case, it's not. You who's out of place? It's the environment that's too rotten to support someone emotionally healthy. And that in itself is a clear warning. It may be time to plan a transition, not out of weakness, but out of intelligence. Those who have clarity do not need to be subject to sick environments. But if you're in an environment where there's still room to grow, and yet you suffer from this kind of emotional sabotage, then you now have an advantage, because most people have no idea that they are being manipulated. They keep blaming themselves, trying to please, swallowing the pain. You don't. You're one step ahead. And this step may be just what you need to start building respect, autonomy, and emotional freedom at work. You can, as of today, start to be seen differently as someone who is not easily shaken, who positions himself without losing his composure. That inspires confidence precisely because it does not get into a small fight. People like that are not invisible. People like that become a reference. And if you've come this far, watching this video to the end, It's because something in you wants more. He wants to get out of this cycle of attrition, of devaluation, of psychological warfare. Something in you is ready for change, and I want to tell you, you're not alone. Here, on this channel, there is an entire community of people who have gone through, or are still going through, situations like yours. People who have already been sabotaged, humiliated, manipulated, discredited. And that, even so, he decided to get up. He decided to understand what was happening, and he decided to take the reins of his own professional history. And now I want to know from you, have you ever experienced something like this? Have you ever felt like you were being emotionally manipulated at work, but no one noticed? He comments below. Now I watch the game. Write this so I know that you made it to the end and that this video really impacted you. And if this content made sense to you, if it somehow gave you clarity, strength, or the desire to react more strategically, leave your like. It shows me that you want more videos like this, that this kind of conversation needs to continue, and it helps this content to reach more people who are also trapped in this same type of toxic environment. Enjoy and subscribe to the channel right now, because here we don't romanticize suffering at work. We show what really happens. We expose what no one has the courage to say. And most importantly, we share tools for you to protect yourself, stand out, and build a solid career without losing your sanity in the process. And look at that. If you like this video, the next one is simply a must-see. It's a real account of a subscriber who went through one of the most bizarre situations that have ever arrived here on the channel. They made a group of company messages just to make fun of me, and they added me unintentionally. Yes, that happened. And the way he reacted will show you exactly how to face this type of exposure without losing class and still come out stronger. Click now on the video that is appearing here on the screen. Go there. You need to see that. And never forget, you don't have to get dirty to win. It needs to be more strategic. I'll see you in the next video.